When you look at this, what do you think C.J. Stroud, Ryan Day, how does it affect their legacy?
So C.J. Stroud, whether he plays again for Ohio State or not, the only person in Ohio State history who has thrown more touchdown passes and thrown for more yards than him is J.T. Barrett, who was here forever and a day. It took him 5 years to accomplish basically what C.J. Stroud did in 23 games here. And through C.J. Stroud, Ryan Day has accomplished the very thing he was hired to do. He not only fixed the passing game with guys like Dwayne Haskins and Justin Fields, but he's taken this passing game to heights that Ohio State fans have never seen from this program. If you go look at the passing record books, it's all filled with guys who played for Ryan Day at this point, and none of it matters. C.J. Stroud might be the number one pick in the NFL draft, and none of it is going to matter. He might be a finalist for the Heisman Trophy again, and none of it matters, because he's 0-3 against Michigan, and that's where his legacy starts, and that's kind of where it ends. And the way he was speaking after the game, even he understands that. He even said it. People are going to say, I never won the game. He never won a Big Ten championship game. He never done any of the things that you would expect to see. Quarterback, some of it is, can you win? And he didn't really win any of the big games here, which is unfortunate, because from an individual talent standpoint, he accomplished some great things here. And for Ryan Day, he's 1-2 in the rivalry now, and he's lost his last two in pretty emphatic form at this point. And so I don't want to say he's on the hot seat. I don't think that's a hot take, and it's almost too emotional. But I do think that space heater that sometimes people sit under their seats when they're working, that got turned on Saturday, because that didn't look good. So it's another 365 days of waiting until they go back to Ann Arbor, where he's going to have to do it with a brand new starting quarterback most likely. And now the question isn't, hey, can Ohio State avenge a loss to Michigan? It's, can Ohio State keep from losing 3 times in a row for the first time since the 90s?
Yeah, there's some elements of the fan base that are going crazy with Ryan Day, and that it just shows you how effective the 2 previous head coaches were against Michigan, that you lose a couple games in a row to a really good program. I mean, Michigan's been really good the last 2 years. So it's got me scratching my head a little bit.
It's hard because Urban Meyer went 7-0. Jim Tressel went 9-1. But Jim Tressel got the number 1, number 2 game in 2006, the game of the century. Urban Meyer got the number 2, number 3 game in 2016, which was a double overtime game. The spot, the thing Jim Harbaugh likes to do. But if you look at a lot of those other Michigan teams they were playing, they weren't good Michigan teams. Michigan made 2 bad hires in a row with Rich Rodriguez and Brady Hoke at a time when Ohio State was ascending into one of the best programs in the country. And so because of that, you got 1 loss between 2 coaches in basically 20 years. Ryan Day's not playing against that type of Michigan team. He's playing against a Michigan team that is a legitimate national championship contender the last 2 years. And it's not an excuse. He still needs to win that game because the coaches before him raised the expectation. This is no longer the years of the 10-year war. We're so far removed from that. We've seen the 90s where Michigan dominated, and then we saw the 2000s and the 2010 where Ohio State dominated, and there are so many people out there who are just used to that 1 loss is inexcusable. 2 losses in a row, and you get fire Ryan Day all over Twitter all over again. But it's Ryan Day is dealing with a different beast with Michigan, but the expectation of you need to win that game still exists, because as we're seeing, they want to beat Michigan, they want to win the Big Ten championship, and they want to compete for a national title. Well, you can't do all that till you do part 1. So the first 11 games really don't matter.
Yeah, that's fair. And the other thing to keep in mind, Jim Harbaugh lost his first 5 to Ohio State. The guy who has won the last 2 was 0-5 at one point in time.
And that's the question. Michigan could afford to be patient because Jim Harbaugh took over a mess of a program, and he had to clean a lot of that up. And now we're seeing a healthy program operating at all cylinders. Well, Ryan Day took over a Ferrari. Let's just be honest here. Urban Meyer had won back-to-back Big Ten championships. Ohio State was predominantly one of the 3 best programs in the country, along with Clemson and Alabama. And the first year was great. The second year was great, even if it was in COVID. They got to the national title. But for the last 2 years, no playoff appearances, no Big Ten championship, and no win over Michigan. It's headed in the wrong direction, where it feels like Urban Meyer's is. I felt like Jim Harbaugh's program is now headed in the right direction. And so you fixed the staff last year. You went and got a $2 million defensive coordinator in Jim Knowles and got rid of everybody but Larry Johnson. So you can't do that again. You can't implode the coaching staff again. So it's going to be a off season of a lot of looking within, whether it's other people in the program or more importantly Ryan Day looking at himself and thinking what can he do to be better so that this isn't the feeling Ohio State fans and more importantly himself and these players have 365 days from now in Ann Arbor.